This is Paul Sandeman with Business Success Tips, where you can learn to make more money in less time and have more fun, especially the have more fun part. I'm excited today because I have Spencer Powell, who's the owner of Builder Funnel. I think we met on a golf course many years ago, if I remember right?
I think so, yeah.
And Donnie got out with 80 million, so he must have done something right?
Yeah, yeah.
I definitely
Made
didn't
a good
follow his
move.
lead, that's for sure. So now you are like a guru in this industry. You've got like 250 podcasts, which is out there. You've got a huge audience. I'd say I'm going to call you semi-famous in the industry, is that's fair. And you've got a big team. You do marketing for remodels and contractors and home builders, and you have a lot of expertise. So I'm going to try to pick your brain tonight or today on how you can help the people listening to this podcast with their marketing. All right. So tell me a little about what you do and how you do it and how you got into it.
Yeah. I mean, really the early innings was through family. And I think that's the case with a lot of construction businesses. But my family comes from a long line of builders and then remodelers and property management out in the Seattle area. So I think over 110 years dating back to, I think it's my great grandfather.
Wow,
I really got involved in that business when my uncles were running it, and they had a custom home remodeling couple of divisions, and we were trying to figure out the internet and how do we get more traffic and using blogs. And that was when we were still doing Twitter, and which we don't really use anymore for this industry. But it was a lot of fumbling through that and figuring out systems and things that were working. And we ended up scaling up that business from about 2 million to 10 million over about 4 years. And really after that, I just said, man, I love this marketing stuff, and I feel like we can serve this industry. And so built an agency around that and picked up some more clients and kept figuring things out. So that was back in 2010 when I first started it. And a lot has changed in the digital landscape since then, but that was the early innings.
I'm going to ask you sort of an off-the-wall question. How do you think AI is going to change things? Because it's a very popular topic, right? So how do you use it and how do you think it's going to change things? I'm just curious your opinion on that.
Yeah, I guess my take on it today, and could be different a couple months from now at the rate it's all changing, but my take on it today is it's technology. So it's going to speed up like,
hold on, we're having internet issues.
Easier, faster. You could do them for more places. And I think AI is the same way, and it's got some interesting components to it that maybe will accelerate that, or that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, a lot of people thought it would go blue collar first, then white collar, and it really went reverse, right? So we're seeing it in design, in creative things, in writing, anything technology based, web based is really, we're seeing the first impact there. And so I think the way I see it today is you have one human that can do X, and now with AI, they can do 3X or 10X or 15X or whatever that is. And so it's really just a production scaler. That's how I see it right now.
Cool. So it should make life more interesting, especially for marketing people like yourself. Now, in general, I'm going to make it a blanket statement. I don't think contractors trust marketing people. I'm just going to tell you, because, in general, if they haven't been taken advantage of, they certainly know somebody who has, right? Yes. The rumor mill is out there. So they go, well, I tried digital marketing. I spent 60 grand. I got nothing, or I tried it, it didn't work. And so you've had success with it, but I know there's been a lot of people that have not. So how do you make it successful versus spending money that just doesn't do much?
Yeah, it's a big question. I would say maybe the first thing I'll pick apart is, I think a lot of people, when they get started with online marketing, they actually go to like kind of some of the lead aggregators, Home Advisor, Angie's List, House, some of those types. And they say, I'll put dollars in and I can kind of like buy leads, right? And those leads are either exclusive or non-exclusive. And you end up weeding through tons of junk and people don't call back. And so you kind of like get this vibe of like internet marketing is junk leads, is kind of that's like one bucket. And I would say our philosophy is, I would prefer that the remodeling business owner, the contractor, have as much control over their own marketing as possible. So, hey, if third-party lead gen sites work for you, I'll never tell you to stop doing them. If they're working, they're working. Right. But most of the time they aren't. And so if you can drive your marketing through your own website, I would say that's like the first barrier to separate. And then as we dive into your own website, then I think the next layer of like scamminess is SEO companies. And so you like hire an SEO company and they are charging you $500 to $2,000 a month to do some like keyword stuff on the back end. And right. It's like, well, they're not really doing anything. And they're sending you reports that say like, you have more impressions and more clicks, but you're like, I don't care. I don't have any more leads, or I don't have any more right. projects. And so I think part of that is just a knowledge gap of between people that are, you know, doing that on the digital side, and then remodelers and contractors where SEO and digital marketing isn't their first language, right? Right. It's their second, third, fourth language. And that's why we try to do a ton of education around this stuff. Because even just within the SEO bucket, it's not just keyword stuff. SEO is user experience, it's content, it's also keywords, but it's how you bring all those things together. So I think those, if I were to pull those things out, those are the two most common that I see where people get that bad taste in their mouth with digital marketing, is like buying leads or hiring scammy SEO companies.
Okay, now there's another issue that comes up. They say, you know, we're building brand versus getting leads. And I know what is, you know, building brand's nice, but I haven't seen any work from it. My neighbor says he saw me on TV or whatever, right? Or, you know, I've got X followers on Twitter or Facebook or something, but I haven't got any business from it. So how would you distinguish between, you know, building brand versus actual marketing that produces some kind of return on investment?
I love this question. So I used to be everything like direct marketing tracking. And I was like, brand is silly. It doesn't make sense. All of those like thoughts were just going through my mind. Like, you can't track it. Like, how is this good? I have swung the other way quite a bit. And I guess, you know, if you look at the biggest companies in the world, they do a lot of branding, right? And so you got to go, well, right. It's got to work to some extent. So if you kind of,
you're not Coca-Cola or PepsiCo. I mean,
no,
people go, no. I'm some small remodeler in, you know, Duluth. So why does building brand help me?
Totally. Yeah. And so the way I've come full circle on this is that branding is lead gen over a longer time horizon. And so the best example of this is when somebody sees your sign today, but they don't need a new kitchen today. And then they see your sign tomorrow and next week, and they see it 52 times over the next year. And then they see it another 50 times over the next 2 years. And then it's been 3 years. And then they call you up and they say something to the effect of like, oh yeah, we see you around town, or, you know, like whatever it is, right? That is in essence branding turned into lead gen over a longer time horizon. And so most marketing works. One is, how well does it work? And then on what time horizon does it work? And most people haven't decided with what intent are they doing the marketing with to begin with. Like, is this a branding thing where I'm expecting, hey, if I do this for 3 years, that I will start to see the result of things that I started 3 years ago.
Well, contractors aren't noted for their patience, right?
Yes, and I will continue to beat this drum because I feel like it. If we could change that mindset, then people would experience a bigger impact. I actually was just getting ready to record some content on this, but it was 11.5% of our customers this year their original conversion with us was greater than 5 years ago.
Wow.
So that to me shows you the power of branding. You know, they're watching stuff on social, they're on my email list, they're getting content. And so am I doing those things to generate leads today? Yeah, but really, I don't know when is the right time for that person. And so what I want to do is stay with them for months and years and decades, if need be. One of those customers that was greater than 5 years ago, it was 12 years ago that they originally converted.
That's amazing.
And
Well,
so to the remodeler, I would say it is important to have some activity that's like, I'm running these ads and I'm trying to find those people that are like ready to buy today. But as you're doing that, if you have a layer of branding activities that you say, hey, I'm going to be consistent in these areas and in front of these audiences for the next 5-10 years. And I know that probably the first 1, 2, maybe even 3 years, I'll get a little trickle. But that's what word of mouth is.
What does the small contractor do? Is doing a couple million to do branding. I mean, it sounds like, I mean, they can put stuff on their trucks and signs and that kind of thing, but how else do they brand?
Yeah, so truck signs are great. And then I would say your email list is one of the best ways. Your email list. Send 2 emails a month that are value driven, educational to your market. And now you are building a brand with them. And what's happening between the person receiving your emails and you and your company is they get an email and they're like, oh, this was some home maintenance tips, or they get an email and it's like, these are the current design trends for kitchens, or whatever the helpful thing is. Now they're starting to associate you as an expert, you as a helpful person, you as consistent, and consistency is one of the elements of trust. So you're actually building trust. So you have all these elements working for you. But social media is great for branding, right? Somebody's not going to see one social post and be like, oh my gosh, I'm hiring this company. Maybe that happens, but it's unlikely. But they're going to see kitchen project, bathroom project, another kitchen one. They're going to see your team. They're going to see behind the scenes. They're going to see all this stuff on social. And they go, by the time they're actually ready and they're ready to buy, you have been there again, building that brand, building that trust, building that repetition with them. So, and email and social are pretty much free other than time, so if you're small, you can write 2 emails a month and post the social a few times a week, and it doesn't cost you hardly anything.
Right. So if I'm a small contractor, say 3 million, all right, and you're looking at, I mean, my experience is most contractors don't have a marketing budget or recruiting budget. Since you're recruiting, it's like they just sort of throw it in or something. So it's beginning of the year, it's a good time to talk about this, right? So how should someone plan for a marketing budget? How much money should there be? What should they do with it? Who should they find to implement it? Should they do it themselves? Should somebody else do it? I mean, there's a lot of confusion around this whole marketing thing, right? So give us some guidelines that they can follow that will help them.
Okay, so let's break down a couple of those questions you asked. One, there's time and money. So you want to identify, do you have more money, more time, a blend of both? But that will be a deciding factor, because as we just talked about, you can write blogs for your website, you can write emails, and you can write social media. Those are all free. And you can do digital marketing for very low cost, but your time commitment will be high. But in terms of budget, when you just say, okay, hey, I'm 3 million, I think for interior remodelers, the range that I've seen that's sustainable, that works for most, like where people can price, where their GP is, all of that kind of stuff, is that like 3 to 5% of revenue. Most people, they're like, whoa, I'm spending like 0.5% or 1%. And so those numbers sound really scary. But if you can build your pricing and your business model around having 3% for marketing, you don't ever have to worry about that again as you hit 5 million, because you've baked it into your pricing model. You spend 3%. Hey, we spend 3%, and the dollars will get bigger, but the percentage doesn't. And so that's step one, is just saying, I need to commit to a healthy marketing budget, not an outrageous marketing budget, but a healthy one that will feed this machine as I grow it bigger and bigger. If you're 3 million today, and then you want to be 5 million, say 3 years from now, for some reason, we think we can just spend the same amount on marketing that we spent 3 years ago, or, that sort of thing. And it doesn't work like that. Like now you have a $5 million machine to feed, where you have more overhead, more staff. You don't want to go down to 4 million or back down to 3 million. And so marketing is what keeps that engine alive. And so, I would say creep it up to that healthy range and build it into your pricing model. And if you can't afford marketing, then it means you're probably not charging enough.
So Spencer, you've been doing this a while, got a lot of experience. What do you think of the big mistakes that contractors make around marketing? Why they've got some sort of bad rap around it? What do they do? We talked about, giving money to house those kind of people, but what kind of mistakes do you see them do over and over again that you think you could prevent just by saying, hey, don't do this, whatever this is?
Oh man. So one is don't stop and start, stop and start, stop and start. Consistency in your marketing is one of those. We talked about it earlier when we kind of talked about branding, right? But you get this compounding effect that's really hard to see when you first get started. So the blogging for 3 months and then be like, oh, this doesn't work. And then switching and be like, I'm going to try social media. And then you do that for like 6 months. You're like, oh, this doesn't work. And then you switch, like, sorry, it's just never going to work if you keep doing that. So I would say that's a big mistake that I see. Number two is not tracking it. It's amazing. People will invest quite a bit of money, whether that's in SEO or a new website or online ads through Google ads or, Meta, if you're running Facebook or Instagram ads. And then, I'll talk to guys and they'll say, yep, I'm spending a couple grand a month on Google ads or whatever it is. And great, let's pull up the analytics, like how's the conversions going? And then they don't know, they don't know. They don't have a way to track it. And so I'd say if you're about to start a marketing initiative, identify, how am I going to track this marketing initiative so that in a year I can say, yeah, I should do this again next year, or no, that didn't really work. I think we're scrapping it, or man, it was like almost there. We got a little bit out of it, but it really wasn't that great. It's like, well, can we make some changes and improve it? But you really can't make any good decisions if you haven't tracked it, because then you're just guessing year over year. So those would be two big ones. I can get really specific if you want a couple more and get into the weeds, but those are like the high level big mistakes that I see most
now
common.
Here's another one. Let's say someone's saying, well, okay, I realize, I do marketing. I tell people that if you consider yourself a marketing company that funds their marketing with some kind of product or service, you're going to put yourself in the elite, because most companies that are successful do that. I mean, if you look at Nike, it's a marketing company. If you look at, Coke, they're all marketing companies that fund their market with some kind of product or service. But most contractors don't know how to make that leap. But let's say they make a little of that leap. How do you choose a marketing company? There's a lot of people out there. So how do I go about vetting marketing companies? Where do I find them? Who do I find who's good for me? How do I make that decision on what's a good fit and what's not a good fit? I mean, I know how to choose an electrician and a plumber and maybe even a CPA if I'm lucky. When it comes to marketing company, I don't know what I don't know. It's really tough.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a few of the kind of like quote unquote obvious answers. I mean, one would just be track record, past history of results. Like, do they work with similar companies to you, and have they achieved similar things that you're trying to achieve with your marketing? If they've done that and they've repeated that a few times, there's a higher likelihood they could repeat it again for you. Right. The other one is just like case studies, testimonials, social proof, like, hey, can you go verify that some of that is, existed and, is true, and that sort of thing. I think the other one is industry specific. And we're biased. I run an industry specific marketing agency. We serve remodelers and contractors, but many people come to us and they say, I've been working with this local marketing agency, and they just don't understand our industry. Like, they write blogs for us and the information just isn't right, or there's missing pieces. And so I think there is a lot of validity to just having somebody in your corner that also speaks the language and knows the market, especially if they're writing, so they're writing blogs, writing project spotlight pages, working on your website, writing social posts, emails. A lot of it is written today along with video. And so I think that's important too. And then I think if you can see them, get to know them, then some of those elements, build trust. That's one of the reasons we try to be pretty outward facing. We create a lot of educational content. But yeah, I think generally, if you're looking for an agency, you want to find someone that's done similar things that you're trying to accomplish, so that you have a higher likelihood that, hey, I think this company can do that for me too.
Now, is there any reasonable expectation of ROI? Because contractors tend to be, no offense, guys, a little bit short-minded. Like, I put in this money, it came out. They're like project oriented versus, long-term oriented, right? Just as a group of people, and work with them for years. Yep. So what can you look at, or should you even look at ROI, return on investment, I'm going to spend this money on marketing. See, I think with contractors, they're not really good at soft goods. I've been with these guys for 50 years. They'll buy a backhoe. If I'm lucky, they might buy computer software to track, like project management software. But when it comes to soft goods like marketing, they have a really hard time parting with their money. I've noticed, right? Even recruiting. So can you expect an ROI? You do it on faith? How do you tell? I mean, how do you get these guys over those kind of expectations?
Yeah. I think it's similar to what we just talked about with like past success and just, stuff like that. We try to lean on data where we can. So we know for our clients, on average, they're going to double web leads in 6 months and triple them in 12 months. And so if we can run the numbers, hey, you're getting 5 leads a month from your website right now. If you're just an average client, you're going to get to 10 leads, in 6 months. What's your average project size? What's your gross margin on an average project? Okay, well, if I'm asking you to make an overhead decision, which is marketing, right? Like, hey, you're going to spend $5,000 a month on marketing or something like that, 60 grand a year, then we're really just dividing it by your gross margin to figure out what's your break even on this marketing investment. What's the double your money number? And that's usually we're trying to shoot for that double your money or better in that first 12 months based on whatever their numbers are. So it's highly dependent on their average project size and their GP for a project.
Double your money sounds really good, but almost too optimistic. So can you give me an example, just somebody they could relate to who's like doubled their money in real time and show them how it worked? I'm just curious.
Yeah, let's just say, I mean, a lot of our remodelers are design build. So let's just say your average project is 100 grand, kitchen project, something like that. And your GP is 35% on those. Okay. So, after all your labor and material costs, you're left with 35 grand that starts to contribute to your overhead. Well, if I'm asking you to spend $60,000 a year in new overhead, then we need 2 projects to get to 70,000. And now we're at break even. I need 4 projects to double your money, right? And so if our marketing can produce 4 more projects or 1 more a quarter at your average, then you doubled your money on your marketing investment.
Right. Now, and you'll be able to tell them where the marketing came from. It's not just, oh, they heard about me. Because to me, marketing is hard to define. Like, well, I saw you somewhere or I did whatever. I mean, it's easy if you put out an email and people respond to it and say, I'll buy it, right? That's, straight ROI. But a lot of this stuff is a bit vague, So how do you help them identify where the lead came from and how they've created it?
Yep. This is where I started my whole journey because I was doing blogs, Facebook posts, and tweets for my uncle's business. And I was doing this because I had been reading about how, hey, blogging can improve your SEO, get you more traffic, like social media for business. It's taking off. This was like 2010, 11. And as I got going down this journey, I was like, but how do I know? Like, how do I know if it's working, right? And so it just bugged me. And so I realized it's just software to track it. And so we're fanatical about tracking it and installing the software because I can put software on your website. And now I know when somebody visits, I know if they came from a Google organic search, a Google paid search, like a Google ad, organic social, paid social. If you're featured in a local newspaper and they click over from that article, I know they came from the local newspaper. If they come from another site, like they're on a designer, architect partner of yours, and you got a logo on their site and they click over, I know they came from there. And then you can create like one-off tracking campaigns for different things you might be doing offline, like through a QR code or a custom URL. You can track it all. And so we're able to tell our clients, hey, we did all these activities. Here's where the leads are coming from, like these 4 or 5 channels. And then when they close a deal, I can go back to the original source and I can see, oh, that was a Google organic search. They came through this page and that was the original conversion. Between original conversion and closed deal, they got 10 different emails. They revisit the website 4 different times. You can track all that. And so for us, that's why I said one of the most common mistakes is not tracking. If you put the tracking in place, then you can prove the ROI. It's either there or it isn't. And then it's a pretty cut and dry scenario.
So is that tracking available to Google Analytics or you do it? I mean, how do they install that software?
So Google Analytics is kind of like, it'll get you some data, but it's really not going to get you down to that like Mary Smith was the buyer. And so we partner with HubSpot, and that's our preferred technology partner. And so we'll just make sure that we've got that system installed when we kick off with a client. And then we get, basically what happens is somebody visits your website and we drop a little cookie on them, just like Google Analytics does or any other software. And they're anonymous, and then they browse around, and then they fill out a form, and it's Mary Smith because she filled out this form. Now we know she's the one that hit that blog post from that Google search. And then when Mary Smith signs a deal, then if you're using the HubSpot CRM, we just know it automatically. Or a lot of our clients will just say, hey, I closed these 2 deals, and then we'll just go mark them in the system. But then we know, oh, Mary Smith, 100K kitchen, Google search, boom, there it is.
So that's obvious. That sounds like a little easier to sell because people actually know where it's coming from versus having faith that it's all working, right?
I mean, I wouldn't want to sell it on faith. I like selling on data because it's like, hey, if it's facts and reality, then it's easy. And then, I mean, that's why our customer retention rate is so high, because we're able to prove it. Even if you had a marketing agency that's doing a bang up job and they're crushing it, if they're not actually able to just physically show you, the company is still sitting there wondering, could it be better? Could it, like, I don't know if it's working. Like maybe all these people are just coming from word of mouth. So, yeah, I mean, we have over 90% retention rate this year, and average agency is in the 30s, you know.
It's amazing. So, if people want to find you and have more, I mean, do you like to initial interview? How do you start interacting with somebody, and how can they find you?
Yeah. So I would say builderfunnel.com is the easiest way. You can just go to our contact page, or there's some meeting forms, and you'll get connected with our team. And yeah, we just have an initial call to see if it's a good fit. If so, we'll outline the next step from there. And if you just like learning about this and you're like, man, marketing is totally new, like, I don't know what's going on. Like, we have a podcast also, Builder Funnel Radio, and then YouTube is Builder Funnel TV. And you can just go learn, you know, and follow us for a little while.
I know you have like 250 episodes, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, at least that. So,
because I'm thinking like, man, it's a lot of podcasts, man. I'll tell you,
yeah,
got a whole college degree in marketing just by listening to all those, right?
You know, and that you could take me down that side path for a long time too. I think the future of higher level education is just online. So yeah, we try to provide a lot of it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Spencer. I appreciate you being here. Some great information. And I highly recommend, if you're doing marketing, you want to find out if you're doing right, you're questioning if it's working, you have basic marketing questions. Spencer's been doing this for years. He's like a guru in the industry, truly understands the construction industry, and to not spend an hour with him is just not good to your time. So I suggest you give him a call.
I appreciate you having me, Paul. Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. It's fun for me. And yeah, I love helping people kind of see, you know, the sides of marketing that maybe they just never heard about before.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Spencer. Appreciate it.